Okay, so we are very pleased tonight to have a very special guest of honor. He's someone who I've been a fan of for many years myself, and I'm sure many of you know about him as well. And but someone knows him more personally than I do is our Chief Legal Counsel, Mr. Eric Dixon, and he'll make the formal introduction. Eric?
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. This is the unofficial Taxpayer Minute. And first of all, welcome to Managua on the Hudson, in honor of our new mayor, Bill de Blasio. Now, many of you have learned that Bill de Blasio has a timing problem. He's always late. So we like to be on time here at Gotham Tea Party. But Bill de Blasio has a reason why he's always late. You see, he was a Nicaragua fan, so he's always on Managua time, and they're an hour ahead of us. So that's the explanation. Now, back earlier in 2013, Frank Laudenberg, the longtime senator from New Jersey, passed away at a very advanced age. A good statesman, a good man. We don't agree with him on many issues, but he was a good man. But anyway, that led to a series of events that occurred very, very rapidly. We had a special election in New Jersey. The Republicans in New Jersey really didn't show much courage. Just like the Republicans here in New York City. I should add, by the way, if you believe in coincidences, do you know that the Manhattan Republican Party is having its holiday party tonight?
Yes.
That's interesting because that's in direct conflict. That's after we set this event. Do you think that's a coincidence? I think not. But anyway, that shows our significance. We are the only conservative fighting force, not only in Manhattan, but in New York City. So candidates have to come to us and for ground support. We've gotten people elected in the past, Dave Sorobin in Brooklyn with a special election, Bob Turner. We've also helped some other people. And we are very proud that tonight's speaker, he's a very esteemed and honored guest. This man showed incredible courage when most Republicans in the state of New Jersey, if not nationally, punted. There are people here who folded in front of the Obama juggernaut. And this man here stepped up to the plate when no one in the state of New Jersey was willing to confront the national uber rock star, Cory Booker. Now let me tell you something about Cory Booker. Aside from all the problems in Newark, just 10 days ago I was in court in Essex County, Superior Court, Essex County, litigating on behalf of that magazine called National Review. They were trying to get documents out of the city of Newark. And I was arguing that there's this, well, the city of Newark for some reason is giving those documents that are public records, your public records, to this George Soros outfit called Think Progress. Well, they're not giving it to National Review, and that's against the law of New Jersey. So I'm arguing, well, what's going on here? And the judge is saying, well, it's not intentional. Maybe they're just incompetent. This is a judge in Newark saying that maybe the city of Newark is incompetent. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Cory Booker's Newark.
That's right.
This is the man who is now a United States Senator. This is your United States Senator from New Jersey, the junior senator. Oh, and by the way, since he got elected 2 months ago tonight, how many of you have heard or seen from him? It's as if this guy suddenly went to Washington and people in D.C. said, oh my God, dude, now we see this guy, he's not just on Meet the Press. Now we see there's really nothing behind the curtain. He's been strangely silent. They got him off Twitter. He's not following strippers from Portland, Oregon. There are still plenty of murders. I mean, the Passaic River, you can't swim in it, you can't fish in it. It's just like every day. It's now like triple digits now. Bodies flooding the Passaic River. I mean, this is just like abominable. This is all Cory Booker's Newark. So anyway, our next speaker tonight, let me tell you something. We have to have great admiration for this man because he did something that no one else did. He took on one of the toughest people in the country, one of the most nationally prominent people in the country. He took on Barack Obama Jr. And at the beginning of that race, people thought Cory Booker was going to be the steamroller. If you thought Elliot Spencer was the steamroller, well, you never met Cory Booker. And let me tell you something. Going from 30, 40 points down to making it a single-digit race. National Republicans didn't get in this race. Our next speaker still fought. He ran a race. He showed how you can win. And we need this man to stay active and to be a voice because this man is saying stuff that no one else in this country is saying. He is saying what needs to be said. And he's a personal inspiration. He almost makes me want to run for some office. Oh, I'm not viable. This is a great American. He's a great friend. He's a great inspiration. He's a great model. He's a role model. This is a great man.
Yes, he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our esteemed honor, Steve Lonegan.
Thank you, everybody. That's wonderful. Thank you. This is my first public speech since election night 2000 of October 16th. So I'm honored to be here with such a great group in Manhattan. And certainly it takes enormous courage to do what you're doing here in a city that just elected probably the nation's first communist mayor. Let's just say it. Let might as well get it out there. I've never held back before. I'm not going to start tonight in front of this group. I want to talk tonight because I haven't spoken publicly in 2 months. When you're out speaking at campaign events, you make political speeches and political issues. But, we're here tonight for a purpose. The Tea Party movement, the conservative movement, the libertarian movement exists for a reason. It needs to exist because of the assault on our liberties. If there was no assault on our liberties, if we were truly free as individuals, we wouldn't be here tonight. We wouldn't have to be. You're here tonight because you have to be. Because future generations are counting on us. And I want to talk about tonight the long path towards liberty. How it started and how we got here and where we're going. Because it really should be, if anything's an inspiration, it should be the inspiration provided to us by the past, by our history, by our forefathers, and by the future. So let me take you back to the beginning of this long, drawn-out battle between the Bill de Blasios of the world and the Ronald Reagans of the world. And where it began and how it was inspired. Let me take you back to around 2,400 years ago, right now. 2,400 years ago, Gautama Buddha had already been dead for 250 years. His ideology of Buddhism and faith had already been spreading across China. The Hindu faith had been established. The pyramids at that point were already ancient by our measures, and the Sphinx, and the pharaohs had come and gone, many of them. And a young man wanders onto the campus of his school in a little place called Athens, Greece, where democracy had begun to grow and flourish for the first time in the history of mankind. And this young man, Aristotle, stepped foot onto the campus of the great teacher Plato. Now, Plato taught in his book, The Republic, about the commitment to the community, the good of the whole, the sacrifice of the individual for what was best for the state. He taught physicians back then, in his book, The Republic, that it was the role of a physician not to heal the wounds, not to do what's best for each patient, but to actually see to it that those who were weak or invalid or elderly would be encouraged or made to die off for the good of the whole. Plato looked at the community as one unit, and Aristotle, this young man with his own ideas, as many young students do, didn't agree with his teacher. Aristotle said, wait, I don't agree with this teaching. There's something different. There's the individual. There's the spirit of each individual to be free to achieve their most highest lofty goals, to live free of the shackles of government, not to be forced to sacrifice for the good of the whole. Oh, we see that manifest itself in many new ways. We have objectivist theory and Ayn Rand and other re-manifestations of this belief that when you free up each individual, each and every one of you, to be free as long as you don't harm anyone else in doing it, to achieve your best potential, to be free of the shackles of government, that this philosophy of individualism versus socialism, in its most basic philosophical forms, begins to manifest itself. In those teachings of Aristotle and Plato would transcend down through history. And we'd see great teachings and writings and sufferings that have now transgressed over 2,400 years of human suffering and thinking and dwelling on philosophical concepts and suffering in the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages in Rome, and the teachings of John Locke and Francis Bacon in the Old and in the New Testament, through 1,000 years of the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, people thought about these ideas of individual liberty, but suffered under serfdom, suffered under the yoke of monarchies and tyrannies and kings and queens. But it took a unique set of circumstances, a very unique set of circumstances. It took a bunch of people landing on the shores of this big, vast continent we now call the United States, over 400 years ago, looking to escape the oppression of monarchs and tyrants and their religious freedom in Europe, to come together with this remarkable idea that they would form, over time and through discussion, this new nation. All starting with a belief in religious freedom, of course, something that's fundamental and should remain fundamental, is under attack today. Our religious freedom is under attack today. And this group of people thinking they could come together and form a new country. The American Revolution, in its infancy, and this coming together of this, in this unique situation of these great men, Adams and Jefferson and Franklin, and that whole list of names that are now part of history and which are being revised in our history books in a different way, came together to create this document that we now know as the Declaration of Independence. And many people believe, and teachers will teach children, this was just some spontaneous response to this revolution, the Tea Party, etc. But that great document, that Declaration of Independence, was the culmination of that 2,400 years of philosophy and of teaching and of suffering and of arguing and of stress and of pushing and of pulling and of titanic battles. And those great teachings emerge in those words: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, amongst them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those profound opening words to this declaration were by no means a short-term thought process, but were the culmination of that 2,400 years, 2,200 years of human thinking and suffering and philosophy, and came together in a unique and rare place, in a land that was free of the shackles of tyranny and monarchy, able to grow and to develop under this remarkable concept of freedom. It was the first time in the history of mankind that anyone had the audacity to say that each and every individual in the philosophy of Aristotle was endowed by their Creator, by a power greater than any on earth. And the remarkable difference of this that resonated around the world in this thing called the American idea, the American experiment, was at no other time in the history of all mankind had anyone set forth this bold statement. Up until that point in history, every king, every queen, every ruler, every emperor believed that they were endowed with those rights. When you see a picture of that king holding up his scepter, or that Asian emperor holding that orb, those were symbols of their connection to heaven. And they believed that through heaven, they were given our rights, and they divvied those rights to us. The great American experiment was, no, each individual, in the spirit of Aristotle, is endowed with those rights, and gives those rights to the government. They said it wasn't going to work. The critics of this nation said it wasn't possible to expect so many thousands, hundreds of thousands, then millions, to govern themselves. That we're just not up to it. We need somebody telling us what to do, how to live, how to use our healthcare resources, how to regulate our financial industry, how and to use the property that we own, how to control the money in our pocket. We can't possibly make our own decisions. We need to be regulated. We need to be ruled. But you know what? That experiment did work. and more freedom and opportunity rolled across this nation from sea to shining sea like a thunderstorm across the prairie, elevating more people into freedom and liberty, more people out of prosperity into wealth than any other culture in the history of all mankind. Based on one belief, and that's an individual liberty. Individual liberty. And that belief in individual liberty is what you are fighting for every day, because it is being taken away from us day by day, step by step, law by law, rule by law, regulation by regulation, every single day. And we see it and we feel it, and that's why we're here tonight.
That's right.
And that's why there should be more of us here tonight. You know, because like Ronald Reagan said, it was a great line, we're only one generation away from losing our freedom. But folks, we're that generation. We are that generation. I see it and I feel it every day in my business, in my life. The government is intruding into every corner of my being, every corner of my home, every room in my house. The liberals say, well, you conservative Republicans, you want to go into our bedrooms. Tell us how to live. They want to go into every room. They want to tell me what light bulb to use in my living room, what toilet to use in my bathroom, what I should put in my refrigerator, what I should put on my lawn. They want to control everything. And we want to defend everything. Folks, I am deeply concerned. I am very deeply concerned that the American dream, as we know it, this nation, as we love it, is slipping away. It is being crushed under that boot heel of regulation. But that is not the worst threat to the future of our country. The worst threat to the future of our country is not the fact that this president has been dismantling the United States Navy, that we now have less ships than we had during the First World War, and that's very important because it's our ships that defend our shipping lanes and our trade routes to other countries. That's been the case through all of history. The nations that control the seas create trades and economies. It's not just that, the destruction of our military. It's not just the intrusion into our health care and those sacred decisions that we make about our own individual health care and our parents and our children. It's not just that. That's not the worst assault, folks. It's not even the attack on our Constitution. We can turn those things back. It's not even the assault on our financial sector. That can be undone. What they're doing that is going to be the most singular destructive thing to this nation, the most singular destructive thing to our culture, is the destruction of the American dollar. That is happening right now under your very noses.
That's right.
Throughout the history of mankind, you can trace the destruction of every nation's ultimate demise to the destruction of its currency. Whether it's Diocletian shaving gold, whether it was, after the election, October 16th, I wanted to go back and do some reading. So I'm at that point in my life where I'm reading books again that I read when I was a kid. So I'm reading A Tale of Two Cities. And as I'm reading the first chapter, I get about to the fourth paragraph. And there's this sentence where Dickens writes that the revolution in France was caused when the French franc, the value was destroyed because the monarchy was printing them at will. Two sentences, printing French francs at will, the currency collapses, the economy declines, the farmers march on Paris, and thus the French Revolution. It has happened over and over again. In this country today, in Germany and throughout history, the Weimar Republic, right now in this country, right now, they are printing $85 billion a month in new cash out of thin air, backed by nothing, not backed by gold, not backed by silver, backed only by a printing press. In fact, there's not even a printing press. Now they just create electronic money and email it to a bank. It's not even a printing press. The American dollar in your pocket, and that dollar bill, that's the measure of your success. When you work and you save and you're frugal and you learn the way your grandparents did to save your money for a better future, that is the measure of the value of your life. Your savings, your value, what you accumulate, that's your scorecard at the end of the day. The value that you turn over to your family, your children, the value that you have for your retirement, the decisions you make. You know, when you save money, when you decide, I'm going to forego that vacation, that new car, that new suit or dress, because I'm going to save that money instead for a future. You make that decision to save for a brighter future. That's being frugal. That's the American way. You know, capital comes from people saving their money and then having capital to invest in a business. But when the government prints money out of thin air and starts undermining the value of that dollar, folks, you as a saver are watching your very life savings, your very liberty, your very freedom dwindle. Dwindle in this cancerous, almost like economic leukemia, where you can't stop it, and you have no way to defend yourself against it. The ultimate assault on our nation is coming through our own bank system, our own federal policy. Ever since August surprise of 1971, when Richard Nixon decoupled us from gold, today this government is printing $85 billion a month so they can sustain their spending. It's not so we can grow the economy. It's not going to be some more money for you. It's so that Barack Obama and Harry Reid and John Boehner can spend as much as they want, as often as they want, to buy votes. But who's suffering? You are. We are. Because the destruction of our value, the destruction of our dollar, is the destruction of our liberties. This is our single biggest problem facing this nation today. And I intend to spend my time and my effort in the months, weeks, and years to come in raising the alarm bell before it's too late. Because once you wake up and that savings account of yours is diminishing in value every single day, so is your liberty. So we have our work to do ahead, folks. I was proud and honored to be the candidate in New Jersey in the U.S. Senate race. And there's a lot of reasons way things turned out, but you know, they shut down government on October 1st. On October 1st, I was in a 2-point race. The government shutdown was in a standoff over the budget. And then they gave Barack Obama everything he wanted a week ago. Had the heirs done that in September, gotten over with, I wouldn't be here now. I'd be in Washington, D.C. as a senator. Folks, we have our work to do. We, you know, with liberty and freedom over the course of history, things ebb and flow. And one person, one group of people can change the course of history. No one in this room today is any different, less or more important than John Boehner. For that matter, Barack Obama. Yeah, he's the president, but what precludes anybody from this room in emerging as a leader in the years to come and changing the future course of history if you take the time or effort to do it, which you are? So let's remember, folks, those simple words. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, not by Barack Obama, not by the government, but by our God. Let's restore our belief in God and recognize that this is a Judeo-Christian nation founded on that fundamental belief, and with that, we should hold that freedom like a sword in our hands and wield it like a sword of freedom and fight forward in the weeks and months to come. So thank you for having me. God bless you. God bless you. Q&A.
Just speak up for that.
Mr. Lonegan, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Fernando Rossi. I'm with the Gotham Tea Party here. Question on Article 5. Article 5, what's your opinion on Article 5? States.
Could you repeat the
Federalism.
question?
Article 5.
In what part?
There was a meeting last week at the Library of George Washington's home, his estate,
Right.
regarding the states. 30 states came together with over 100 delegates to set up an agenda on Article 5 where the states have the right to amend the Constitution, not through D.C., but through federalists and state.
Well, through nullification and other practices which we have failed to lose because we have, especially since Woodrow Wilson and the beginning of the progressive movement, relinquished much of our belief in the rights of the states, the federal government. You know, here's the problem, is that if society is accepting this, we are no longer a nation of ass-kicking liberal believers in liberty. We're not. We have now become a nation of people who are willing to capitulate, for the most part, many of us, we're different, who are willing to capitulate to this belief in big federal government. And you know, if you go back to colonial days, the colonists taught their kids after the Revolution from the nursery, and you read this in history books, they taught in the nursery this fundamental belief in liberty and fear of tyranny and fear of big government. We don't teach fear of big government. We embrace big government. Our children embrace big government. They look at government as a solution to our problems, and we know it's a necessary evil. So anything we can do to fight back, I support.
We have a question from the right. Yeah.
First, I'd like to thank you for all your efforts, and I want to make a little statement. Mark Levin, the radio commentator, had a terrific short analysis of your New Jersey race. And he said, let's consider that the Republican challenger against Bob Menendez a few years ago lost by 17 points. And presidential candidate Mitt Romney lost by 17 points. But in your race, however, with no assistance from the Republican National Committee to elect Republican senatorial candidates, didn't give you the support that you required or needed or deserved. And you lost by 10 points. And his conclusion is, a message, a conservative message, got more energy and more support than those other two candidates. Amen to that.
I don't have a question. But Mr. Lonegan, I just want to thank you so much for, just having me to be a part of some of the wonderful trips that you made all throughout New Jersey. And the people in New Jersey don't know what they're missing out on. Someone intelligent, someone with integrity, someone with strength, someone with courage, and someone who believes in our Constitution. It was my privilege to really just be with you as much as I could be. And thank you so much for having the courage to stand up front and speak up for what you believed in. God bless you and your family. Thank you.
I don't know, see if we see, well, we have a question. That's Bob Diamond for the Bronx Tea Party. Bob Diamond from the Bronx.
Bronx, yes.
Bob Diamond from Bronx Tea Party.
Steve, you are a hero to millions of Americans.
Yes.
We need you in public life.
Yes, we do.
Your race was not a defeat, considering the question of funding, and as was just brought out, you did better than Romney and many of the others.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We were devastated to hear you say that you would not run again. We think your political career should be beginning, not ending.
Anybody else have any questions?
Doug Salters from Jersey City Tea Party. Sizable Jersey.
All right.
I have to say that having been 20 years in Hudson County and never seen anybody willing to stand up and stand for something, it was great to be able to walk around Hudson County from Union City to North Bergen on your behalf. And I also like to thank Nona Aguilar from the Gotham Tea Party, along with Eric Dixon, who helped me do this, because we had no help from the Republican leadership at all. It was shameful, the lack of effort on their part. But Steve, we need you in the state to still be a voice, because we have to have leadership and vision, and somebody to stand up and say, this is what we can do, and not what we can't do anymore in New Jersey.
Amen. Amen.
But I do want to once more encourage every one of you to get back to your communities and be involved in your own, when you all are, Republican clubs, elected officials, run for office, get elected, because that's how you start. I started as a small town mayor, a long time ago actually, now I think and I would never thought, coming from where I came from, that I've had the opportunity to be a candidate in such a terrific office and such a great race. I would much rather have won, but I enjoyed the race, the many wonderful people I met in the course of that race, the things I learned, and certainly we're not going to let it go to waste. I promise you that. Promise you that. Thank you, guys.
We have one quick question.
money, it's worth nothing. Do you think a time will come, they say, wait a second, $100 of the old money's gonna be worth 40 new dollars? So take it off the market and revalue
I
it
think
way?
that dollar bill in your pocket is now based on what people perceive it to be worth. It has no backed up in any commodity value. So here, give me that.
So you don't think...
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. That the dollar bill that we now take for granted as being worth something is a pretty picture. Now imagine that I started printing some nice piece of paper with my picture on it, right? And I called them Stevie's. And I walked into the restaurant here and said, "Oh, nice meal, I'm going to pay you $50 in Stevie's." And they'd say, "What are you talking about? That's not worth anything." But I said, "Looks just as good as the other guy, but..." The fact is that those dollar bills that we're printing are only what people think they're worth. There's nothing behind it. And the minute the world wakes up and says, "Wait a minute, they're just pieces of paper." It's like a house of cards,
Well,
paper
how
cards.
about China? I'm surprised they're not calling it in and want...
Well, because China has a vested interest in keeping our currency relatively, they're sitting on what, $7 trillion of our money. They don't want to see it collapse either. But this is a very treacherous waters we're navigating right now. And there was a time in history, by the way, let me talk a little bit about this. There was a time in history that Americans were fearful of and did not trust paper money. And it wasn't very long ago. Only less than 100 years ago, there was a little story came out called The Wizard of Oz. You familiar with The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
The Wizard of Oz is a political parody on the battle between gold and silver standards. In the book The Wizard of Oz, the gold, the yellow brick road, is gold. Oz is Wall Street. The Tin Man represents the unions, who were sort of ineffective and rusty. The straw man represented the farmers. And the lion represented Williams Jennings Bryan. This was a political parable. The lion was William Jennings Bryan, whose bark was more than his bite. The Tin Man was the ineffectiveness of the unions. And the straw man, he represented the farmers of the Midwest who wanted to have a silver standard instead of a gold standard. Those flying munchkins, those were Wall Street financial people in the parable. And that is back when there was this big battle over whether or not to have gold or silver as the nation, or both. And there was a famous speech made by William Jennings Bryan in 1896 at the Democratic Convention, which propelled him to win the nomination on the 21st vote, called his famous Cross of Gold speech. However, Americans understood the value of their money. Hence, in the Depression, you hid your money under the mattress. You know, we've lost that understanding that a simple paper dollar bill printed by Barack Obama and Ben Bernanke cannot represent our freedom, our savings, and our value.
How about these Bitcoins then? Are these Bitcoins?
Yeah. Anyway, folks, I don't want to spend the whole night. This is an issue that I'm... So thank you again very much. Keep aware of what's going on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Lonegan. Let's give him a standing round of applause.